Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verses 9 through 11, and it says, "That which has been is that which will be, and that which has been done is that which will be done. So there is nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which one might say, 'See this, it is new'? Already it has existed for ages which were before us. There is no remembrance of earlier things, and also of the later things which will occur. There will be for them no remembrance among those who will come later still." And as I was preparing for this show, that scripture came to mind because we are in this predicament globally and, specifically in America because of exactly what the scripture lays out. History repeats itself. Old evils continue because they were never fully dealt with. We fall into traps because true history was hidden from us, we were lied to about it, or they made it seem boring and irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to bring that scripture because you have made it your business to dig out the truth of why we are where we are, and what's been hidden, and what real evils are persisting today. And I know you've been working on the roots of the modern Marxist movement, the history of the CIA, JFK assassination. Does this scripture feel confirming to your work?
It really does. You picked a good one. You really did, dear. You picked a very good one.
I just thought, it almost makes you just crack up laughing. That's like probably a theme for your whole entire body of work.
Ironic is how I would describe quite a bit of my work. A little over a year or so ago, I stumbled onto, it was like a 45-minute video done by Chase Hughes, and he was talking about hypnosis and MKUltra into RFK's assassination. And I thought it was just wonderful. So I played that and dug in on some other research with that, presented on one of my Sunday shows, the What We Should Have Learned. And the audience absolutely loved it. And they're like, we need to know more about MKUltra and what can you find? And I was like, all right, well, if we're going to do the CIA, then I'm going to go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do the CIA, and it'll take as long as it takes. I had no idea it would take years. I had no idea. Part of it's my fault because I'm extremely detail oriented. I would rather spend the time and dig out as much little nuances and threads as I can pull rather than just give like a 30-minute overview. If it takes me 3 episodes to do it proper, fine.
Well, I think that's what's beautiful about the work, because the devil is in the details, as they say.
It is. It really is. When you're getting into, and the more I learn about the CIA, they're an extension of the global cabal. They are the hand of the cabal. They were never working for the people. They've worked against the American people constantly, decade after decade after decade.
And that was a question that I wanted to ask you. In your view, was it even created with a benevolent aim, or was this like kind of a Patriot Act kind of precursor where they say, national security, we need this, and they get the green light, they get the funding, they get the manpower, and then off they go to do all this evil stuff?
So it was started by a handful of guys, and one of them was a war hero. And I feel like he probably in the beginning was closer to what you were describing. That would be Donovan. Now, you can argue in the last 10 years of his career or so, he was fully on board with all the shenanigans.
Wow.
But in the beginning, you can easily make that argument. Then enters the Dulles brothers. And the Dulles brothers were already working for the corporatists and the globalists in Europe. They were the lawyers. They were also deeply entrenched in secret societies, Skull and Bones, all the stuff going back. So then they bring in a lot of their cronies into World War II, and they're playing both sides of the fence. They already had a working relationship with all the German companies that were doing the work of the Nazis. All the chemical companies that were making, like the gases and all the horrible stuff that leads to, you can follow this back to Monsanto's. This goes down the path to Roundup. Like, that's how far and how deep. They organized Operation Paperclip. You can make the argument with FDR. He was actually a pinko, which is the term for a light communist. He was, when you go back and you really look at objectively at the deal that he was doing and how many courts struck it down, which is why we now have a larger Supreme Court. He got mad at them, so he packed it.
Wow.
He's the reason we have 2 term limits, because they were afraid he was going to make himself king. You can go all the way back with that. He also had a very tight relationship with Stalin, and he referred to him as Uncle Joe. So,
Wow.
right. So Stalin originally was working with us and the Allied forces against Germany, and then in come the Dulles brothers, and they flip it and they work with the Nazi spy master to create stay behind units. And they take all of that information, and that's where you get the rat lines. That's where you get them moving around Argentina. They go underground. That's where you get Operation Paperclip. That's where you got the opium trades that continued for decades. They were tight over in China and doing all of that. Like the shenanigans that sprouts between the end of World War II and 1960. It is unbelievable. I probably spent 6 months just on that section of history because there was so much.
Now, tell us what Operation Paperclip is about.
Okay, so originally in school, I was taught Operation Paperclip. That's where they chose certain Nazi scientists that were really sorry and didn't have a choice because they were going to get killed and their
Right.
families, we were told all this. Okay. We were also told it was only like 200 scientists. Yeah, it's closer to 2,000. And they were some of the worst, most like SS, yes, kill them all. Let's use the children. Slave camps, the whole thing. And
Wow.
ironically, one of the worst ones is the one that went to work for Disney. I literally showed things of him, Disney commercials with him. So they brought all of that horror over into our country, and it went into every aspect. It went into energy, went into research, it went into pharma, it just spread its tentacles out.
And Mary, I read Joseph McCarthy's book, and let me see, I have it right here.
Nice.
America's Retreat from Victory. America's Retreat from Victory.
I would agree with that.
And it's a horrifying read when you're waking up, right? Because you're like, are you kidding me? First of all, of course, we were taught that Joseph McCarthy was a psycho, paranoid
Right.
freak, and whatever their version of today's racist
I
is,
think
was back then.
probably towards the end of his life, he was getting really paranoid and he was drinking, but they were driving him crazy and doing all kinds of shit
Yeah.
to
I
him.
mean, you can
So
understand why people
they
who
get
are,
driven to a
yeah,
point, and that's part of the
exactly.
tactic.
So what I learned in reading his book was, I mean, the Dulles brothers were horrifyingly dark
Yes.
figures.
Yes.
And they imported, as you were talking about this Project Paperclip, they imported all of these communists into the country, and they
Yes.
used the State Department to do it.
Yes. Yes. They did. They
And
absolutely did.
he also talked about in the book that they were using, like, they would purposefully put homosexuals into the State Department because that was so taboo that they were able to blackmail them into doing all of this illicit and illegal, really treasonous paperwork.
Yes. Yes, and there were brothels in DC also. I uncovered that. That was part of LBJ and even all the way up to Watergate. There were active high level elite brothels, both genders, mostly women, but But yeah, you look at Hoover, he was a homosexual and had all kinds of very taboo fetishes for the day. Nowadays, it's an average day at Walmart, depending on what state you're in.
No kidding.
So but back then, it was a really big deal, and
No kidding.
it made them very controllable. And because I think Hoover knew how dark his secret was, he used that same skill on everyone around him. He was the file master. He had shit on everyone in Washington.
Wow.
Everyone.
Wow.